Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Tuesday, May the 6th, 2025. And really good night on Talking Boxing last night. It's always a pleasure to get on with everyone and chat for a couple of hours. And we had one of boxing's biggest personalities in Australian boxing on last night. Someone we all know really well, Grant Tassie Brown. I'll get to him in a sec and what happened last night. But it's pretty much a review of last night, and so many people with different views and opinions on my video yesterday. It's probably the most commented on video that I've done with my little rant yesterday about the Riyadh season and Turki Al Sheikh. But we'll get to that in a second. First of all, on this day back in, what was it, 1995, I think it was. I haven't got the notes with me at the moment. You would have thought I'd be organised, but I think it was 95. Maybe it was actually, now you've said that. I've said that, I should say. Now I've got to check. It was Oscar De La Hoya anyway. 1995, there you go, I got it right in the first place. 1995, Oscar De La Hoya defeated Rafael Ruiz for the IBF 135-pound title. So what did he win it in 92, the Olympic gold, and by 95 he was probably a couple-time world champion. So just a phenomenal fighter was Oscar, as we all know, just ask him. But one of those cases where I think we all agree with everything that he says, don't we? Just a superstar. Also on this day, in 2012, Floyd Money Mayweather, I was going to say Pretty Boy Floyd Money Mayweather defeated Miguel Cotto over 12 rounds for the World 147-pound championship. And I was actually at that fight. And Cotto gave Mayweather all he could handle on that night, I remember. Just a quick little story about it though, or a little tidbit or whatever it might be, is that on the night, we're up in the crowd, watching the prelims, and we're probably about 2 fights in, I suppose. And we looked down at ringside, although actually I think it came up on the big screens. It was Miguel Cotto sitting at ringside watching the prelim fights before his fight, which is something you never see. You never see him in the arena. I mean, once the weigh-in's done, that's sort of it until fight night. But he was just sitting at ringside, taking in the prelim fights before he'd go in and get his hands wrapped and get ready to fight. So it's something that I've never sort of seen before and haven't seen since. The main event fighter in such a big fight, that was at the MGM Grand, would be sitting ringside just taking in the sights. But apparently that was a little bit of a ritual for him at the time. Sort of relaxed him a little bit, got a feel of the arena and everything. I remember also on the undercard of that fight, I think it was there 2012, it was Canelo actually fought Shane Mosley on the undercard of that fight as well. I think he defended his WBC 154-pound title that he'd won the year before over Matthew Hatton. Another fight I was at. I seem to be at a lot of these fights, don't I? But this is all, again, part of Cinco de Mayo. Again, I was carrying on about this yesterday in regards to Canelo on Cinco de Mayo fighting in front of a half-full stadium in Saudi Arabia and putting on a lackluster performance. But back then, he was on the undercard of Mayweather and Cotto, and I think that was the year after that Canelo actually fought Mayweather. Actually, I think it was. So that would have been 2012. I think that was Floyd's only fight for the year. Then in 2013, he fought twice. He fought Guerrero and then Canelo. So when he was, he got a little bit more active. But anyway, I think it was on this day also last year, and it seems like it was yesterday. Naoya Inoue knocked out Luis Nery in Japan. Now, I think, was Jason on the undercard to this fight? Jason Maloney? I can't remember. But anyway, that happened a year ago as well. And geez, it's amazing how quickly the years fly by. I think I say that a fair bit on here, but it's crazy. It just seemed like yesterday that fight, but it was in fact a year ago. Come on, buddy. All right, so on to last night's episode on Talking Boxing. Again, thanks to everyone that tunes in every week. We seem to be getting more and more. And what I like about it too, there's a lot of people watching live. We still get sort of the same amount of people overall that sort of watch it after the fact, or listen to it on Spotify. But to actually have, I think we had 60 to 70 people at one stage watching, which is fantastic to get a real gauge of what people are thinking. And they can obviously interact and let us know their comments and opinions and theories, all that sort of stuff. But we started off with, well, we went over my comments in the morning, but I'll get to that. But first of all, we had Grant Tassie Brown on. Now, it was really good to have him on because we all know he's a character anyway, so he's always good for a quote or two. But he'd been on the Facebook Live, whatever it is, the platform, that day with Terence Crawford, and Crawford, of course, was in New York over the weekend for the Fatal Fury card with Garcia and Ramiro, Haney, Ramirez, Lopez, Barboza. Then he hopped on a plane and flew to Saudi Arabia for Canelo's fight, and after Canelo's fight, they got him in the ring and announced the big fight. Of course, Turki Al-Sheikh shushed the crowd and told them to listen up and be nice and polite and everything else. First of all, to see his belt, his new ring belt, and then to get the two to face off. And I was surprised by the size or lack of size difference. I think we all thought that Canelo being the 168-pound fighter and Terence Crawford being the 154-pound fighter now, and predominantly before that 147, but I think we all thought that the size difference would be pronounced, but it wasn't. Crawford is actually taller than Canelo. Of course, Canelo is more bulkier, but there's a lot of people suddenly thinking that Crawford has a chance against Canelo. And I suppose I'm one of them. I mean, time will tell. But that was the one thing that's really stuck out to me, was the lack of size. Canelo's only 5'8", I think he is, which is my height. And he fights at 168. But Tassie had spoken to Terence Crawford that day, obviously excited about coming to Australia. He's very confident in what he can do against Canelo Alvarez. Geez, you'd love to be getting that pay packet, wouldn't you? The talking sort of up to about $70-80 million. Wow, be pretty amazing, wouldn't it? But a lot of people agreeing with Terence Crawford, and now suddenly thinking he has a red hot chance against Canelo. And based on that performance, geez, you have to agree with that, wouldn't you? But Tassie, he was talking about his trip to Australia. He's coming out on the 26th of May, and he's in Brisbane. Then I think he's on the Gold Coast doing gym tours, and then he's in Sydney doing more gym tours, and then he comes down to Melbourne and does another couple of gym tours, and then finishes with that gala dinner at the Melbourne Pavilion. So the tickets are $500 each. I don't know, it's a fair bit of money, but I tell you what, when you're sitting there, you've got the 3-course meal, you've got all your drinks and all that sort of stuff, and you're sitting a few metres away from the top 2 or 3 pound for pound fighters in the world, and the guy that is about to commence his training camp to fight, to fight Canelo Alvarez. I think it's money well spent. And I think tickets through Tribe Booking, or you can just call Tassie. I think it's all over his socials and all that sort of stuff anyway. But it's amazing how now all of a sudden the appearance is even more, I suppose, epic, because as soon as he gets home from Australia, his training camp commences for the Canelo fight. So, if you can spare the money and you want to go see Terence Crawford in Melbourne, go for it. Or better yet, if you can't get there, then get to the gyms and get an autograph and a photo there. So anyway, it was great to have Tassie on, and geez, only Tassie can have the energy and the enthusiasm for such an event. And he obviously he loves boxing, but you could really feel it come through the screen. He loves his boxing, and he's very passionate about what he's doing. And he's also talking about hopefully bringing the WBC convention to Australia. That's going to be a monumental task. But one thing I've sort of learned about him already is that if he puts his head down and makes his mind up he wants to do something, he's pretty good at getting it done anyway. So again, support Terence Crawford coming to Australia, and be a great experience if you can get there, whether it be at the gyms or at the gala dinner at the Melbourne Pavilion. All right, so I thought after yesterday with I'm not going to call it a rant, it was almost like a verbal editorial, I thought, just my thoughts on the Riyadh season and Turki Al El Sheikh, and if you're watching this, you probably watched it yesterday, so I don't need to go over it too much. But pretty much the theme of it was that I, for one, don't think boxing needed to be saved, and that's because that seems to be the rhetoric that most people talk about. Oh, well, the saviour of boxing. Well, I don't know. It wasn't too bad before he came along. I thought it was great to have him as an addition to the boxing scene. I think everyone did. But now that he seems to have just pushed everyone aside and taken over, and everyone's allowed him to take over, and I get it, he's done some great things. But my argument is that why are we just putting all our thoughts and prayers, I suppose, I don't know, but all our hopes and wishes and plans and all that sort of stuff in the hands of Turki Al El Sheikh, and just thinking without him that boxing would collapse. And that was probably my argument. And I didn't like the fact that we've got the biggest fights in the world getting fought before barely any fans in sterile, stale arenas. That was my point. And it was highlighted yesterday by Naoya Inouye's fight with I've been calling him Cardenas, but it's Cardenas. So I'm going to call him Cardenas. And I had a few people sort of mention, well, what are you saying that boxing's not good at the moment, and when you've got Naoya Inoue and Cardenas putting on that show in Las Vegas, well, that just highlights my point entirely. My point is that it's the Turki Al El Sheikh and Riyadh season movement that is not good for boxing at the moment. Because on the weekend we had the Times Square show where there was a couple hundred people in attendance. Fans were locked out. They couldn't see anything. They couldn't experience the fight. And even on TV, I thought the atmosphere wasn't great. The fights were just pathetic. And look, one thing I will say with the fights though, and I was thinking about it last night, is that, I mean, I'm not going to give them an out by no means, because I mean they were ridiculously boring fights, but the styles of all fights when you put them together probably didn't marry up that well, which didn't help. But it still doesn't excuse the fact that no fighter engaged. And when we've got Teofimo Lopez and Arnold Barboza being the fight of the weekend before Naoya Inoue yesterday, I'm talking about the Riyadh season cards here, that's saying a lot, because that wasn't a great fight. And if that's all we've got to hang our hat on, that probably shows how bad the weekend was. But my point was with Inoue and Cardenas, that highlighted my point entirely. What I was saying is that fight, I don't know how many people were there, and I'm sure there was a decent crowd, but a big fight in Las Vegas in front of a heap of screaming fans, passionate boxing fans. They're enjoying Sin City, but also the massive fight there and the massive fight card, and that was my point. And Top Rank had put on, and all they'd really done, this is probably highlights again and underlines my point, is that people were yesterday just carrying on, well, not carrying on, but in a good way, about how great the Inoue and Cardenas fight was, and a brilliant fight. Now, it was a really good fight, but it wasn't in my opinion, it wasn't like a fight of the year candidate. It was a really good fight. It really was. Action-packed, but that's what we come to expect. And I think we probably thought it was a lot better than what it was because of the crap that we've been dealt lately as far as these Riyadh season cards go. So when people were saying, well, what are you saying that boxing's not in a good place? Look at the fight yesterday. I never said boxing wasn't in a good place. I said the Riyadh season / Turki Al El Sheikh investment is not putting boxing in a good place because of what they're doing. That's sort of my point. I mean, I love the fact that we had a big fight in Las Vegas again, and a really good fight with Inoue. And I mean, on that fight too, he had to again go through some adversity. He got dropped in the second round, and I was really impressed with Cardenas. I thought he fought really well. It was a lot better fighter than what I thought he was. And sometimes you don't realise how good a fighter is until they actually get in the ring with another good fighter. And we see it on the opposite side a few times as well, when they look great smashing lesser opponents and they get in with a good opponent and get smashed themselves. But I was really impressed with him. That left hook, it's a whipping left hook. It's a little bit like a Ryan Garcia type of hook, isn't it? Where it's just very, very hard to read. In a way, by the way, he walked straight into that just by being careless, made it a lot easier on Cardenas to hit him. And I've got some doubts. I know as good as Inoue was yesterday, and I know it's hard for him to get up I can just see one day, I mentioned this again last night on the show, that I've got just a feeling that some stage he's going to get careless and walk into a punch that he just can't get up from. And he's been fortunate so far, but he can be very reckless, can Naoya Inoue. And it might not be a Nakatani, it might not be a Rodriguez, but at some stage, I'm telling you, someone's going to nail him, and we might have an upset KO victory here. I'm just saying, look at history. It happens. Unbeatable fighters lose to fighters that they shouldn't be losing to. But anyway, it was a great shot by Cardenas, put Naoya Inoue down. I don't think he really hurt him. You can see he was on his knees and he looked to his corner and just sort of nodded and said, I'm okay, and then got the job done. And like a good fighter should, he got his opponent hurt and got him out of there, which is exactly what elite fighters do, unlike his contemporaries on the weekend. And again, on last night's show, it was all about, that dominated proceedings, didn't it, the talk about it. But I was really surprised how many people actually agree with me and again, a little bit over it. And again, I'll say it, it's not like I'm against what Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh Season are doing as far as trying to get the big fights together, trying to get the big cards, trying to get all the best fighters to fight each other. It's just the way they're going about it. They did all the events. I know that goes against the whole Riyadh Season thing because they want them all in Saudi Arabia. But if they were making this happen and putting these fights on in the boxing hubs in front of big crowds, then I think it'd be a little bit different. But when you're dragging the best fighters out and putting them in these arenas, it's just not good. And again, I highlighted yesterday with Canelo Alvarez the fact that he normally fights in front of 20,000 screaming Mexican fans on Cinco de Mayo weekend, just going nuts over there. And he was fighting in a half-empty room at 6 o'clock in the morning in Saudi Arabia. And maybe that could have been the reason why we had such a really poor performance from Canelo. And I think, I'm not sure I mentioned it yesterday, I think I did, that 3 of the fights on the weekend are now in the top 6 of all-time lowest punch output fights in history. Well, in the last 40 years anyway, since CompuBox has been around. And Canelo and School is number 1, the lowest amount of punches combined in a world title fight in 40 years. And that's something I thought I would never say about Canelo Alvarez, who always comes to fight, always tries to put on a performance for the fans. And is it a sign of him slipping, or is it just a sign of him just being bored and couldn't be bothered sort of getting School out of there? But geez, I tell you what, as I said, I think there's a lot of people after that performance that are looking at Terence Crawford and saying, all right, what are the odds? What are the current odds on Sportsbet or whatever it is? Because I think the Canelo that turned up on Sunday morning here in Australia, I think Crawford would have beaten him no problems whatsoever. Slow, one punch at a time, couldn't cut off the ring. I don't know, but it fell a bit flat in the ring, didn't it? When they're doing the face-off, I think most people still had their mouths open, thinking, "What the hell did I just watch?" And then they're getting Crawford in there to start pumping up the fight. Yeah, I don't think Turki Al-Sheikh would have been overly happy about that. I think he would have wanted an explosive performance from Canelo, and then to get Crawford in there and do a exciting face-off. But I mean, it was you almost hear a pin drop in the arena, couldn't you? And that's my point again, and that's all I'm saying. Let's get the big fights back where they should be: Vegas, New York, wherever it might be, England. I know they do have some good fights in England. I'm talking about the big fights. And but anyway, it's good to see everyone having their say and letting me know their opinions anyway. But again, I'll say I was really surprised at how many people actually agreed, and even the ones that maybe didn't agree, well, maybe it hadn't crossed their minds, suddenly went, you know what, you've got a point, So that's all I was trying to say. But we need a a circuit breaker or something for them to think, all right, okay, well maybe we stop with all these proposed gimmick type of events and this and that, and just get back to what makes boxing great, and that is traditional boxing venues in traditional boxing cities, with the crowds and attendance going nuts. That's what boxing is, and I think Turki Al-Sheikh's got to just respect the history of boxing, the way it's watched, the way it's consumed, I suppose, and I'm sure everyone will be happy and continue to support him and what he's doing. So anyway, guys, I know there's probably not a lot to discuss. It's all been about that in the last couple of days, but I just wanted to reiterate what we spoke about on the show last night. And again, thank you to everyone that tunes in to the show, listens to the show on Spotify. The channel is growing. I think we're at 2,100 now, going with a bullet. But no, I just like the fact that every day we're getting more and more followers, and some great feedback from everyone out there. So guys, have a great Tuesday, and we will catch you tomorrow.